Most days feel ordinary, yet history often turns on invisible thoughts that slip quietly into homes, markets, and schools, slowly rearranging how people wake, work, argue, and imagine tomorrow without trumpets or dramatic announcements. One of the biggest changes in human life did not arrive as machines or battles, but as ideas that whispered into routines, reshaping habits before anyone realized something fundamental had shifted. Imagine waking one morning to discover that nothing around you looks different, yet everything works differently because people now believe new things about time, fairness, knowledge, or authority. That strange tension between familiar surroundings and unfamiliar thinking sits at the heart of this story, where comfort wrestles with uncertainty and order quietly collides with unexpected consequences. Our journey begins not in palaces or laboratories, but in everyday spaces where ideas first tested their strength against tradition. For much of history, daily life followed inherited patterns because survival depended on repeating what parents and neighbors already knew worked well enough. Custom acted like an invisible map, guiding choices about work, family, and belief, while questioning those paths often felt risky or unnecessary. Stability offered safety, yet it also limited imagination, creating a world where most people lived similarly to those before them. Gradually, however, new ways of thinking emerged, sparked by curiosity, frustration, or quiet observation of problems that routines could not solve. These ideas did not demand instant revolution, but suggested small adjustments that slowly grew harder to ignore. Change began as conversation rather than command. One powerful shift involved how people understood time, moving from natural rhythms toward measured hours that organized labor, travel, and expectations. Clocks entered homes and workshops, subtly teaching punctuality, efficiency, and shared schedules, while also reducing personal freedom in unseen ways. Time became something owned, spent, and sometimes wasted. Another idea challenged authority itself, proposing that power did not flow only downward from rulers, but upward from communities and shared agreements. This thought unsettled long-standing hierarchies because obedience suddenly required justification rather than habit. Order remained, yet its foundation felt less certain. Ideas about knowledge transformed learning, suggesting that understanding came not just from tradition, but from questioning, testing, and recording results. Books, pamphlets, and discussions spread these habits, reaching people far from universities or courts. Curiosity gained social value. Daily work also changed as efficiency became a goal, guided by ideas about productivity and improvement rather than simple endurance. People began comparing methods, seeking better results with less effort, sometimes improving lives while increasing pressure. Progress showed to faces. New thinking about childhood reframed young people as learners needing guidance, not merely labor supporting families. Education expanded slowly, reshaping expectations for future generations. Learning entered daily routines. Ideas of cleanliness and health altered homes and streets, connecting unseen causes to visible sickness. Improved sanitation followed belief before evidence convinced everyone. Health became a shared responsibility. Markets shifted as ideas about trade emphasized choice, competition, and value beyond tradition. Shoppers became decision makers rather than passive participants. Economies grew more dynamic. Communication changed as people believed information should travel faster and wider. News became regular, shaping opinions daily. Awareness expanded. Religion, too, felt transformation as personal belief gained importance alongside communal ritual. Faith became inward as well as outward. Conscience mattered. Families reorganized roles, influenced by ideas of partnership and responsibility rather than strict hierarchy alone. Home life adapted gradually, relationships adjusted. Cities reflected these changes visibly, yet ideas always moved first, shaping bricks and streets afterward. Urban life became experimental. Adaptation followed belief. Resistance appeared wherever ideas threatened comfort, reminding us that thought itself can feel dangerous. Debate grew lively, disagreement became common. Some ideas faded quickly, while others settled deeply into routine, becoming invisible again once accepted. Normalcy returned in new forms, change disguised itself. By this stage, daily life had become layered with meanings shaped by thinking rather than force. People acted differently because they believed differently. Belief guided habit. As we pause here, the groundwork stands firmly laid, with ideas woven into ordinary actions so tightly that separating thought from routine seems impossible. The path forward remains open because these early transformations prepared the world for consequences still unfolding quietly beyond this moment. Those quietly planted ideas did not remain gentle forever because once habits shift, expectations change as well, and people began noticing gaps between old rules and new beliefs that no longer fit together comfortably. Daily life started producing small frictions, where routines felt slightly misaligned, prompting questions that once would have seemed unnecessary or even rude. The world still looked familiar, yet it behaved differently. As ideas spread, they collided with one another because not every new belief pointed in the same direction, and compromises became part of ordinary decision-making. People learned that choosing how to live also meant choosing which ideas to trust. Thinking carried weight. Workplaces transformed further as fairness and rights entered conversations once dominated by efficiency alone. Hours, wages, and safety became topics of debate, reshaping relationships between employers and workers. Power adjusted incrementally. Schools absorbed competing ideas about discipline, curiosity, and equality, producing classrooms that reflected broader social tensions. Learning was no longer neutral. Education became a mirror of values. Homes responded as expectations about parenting, privacy, and individuality evolved. Children were guided differently, not simply prepared for survival, but encouraged toward identity. Family roles softened and shifted. Cities accelerated change because dense populations allowed ideas to travel quickly through conversation, print, and shared experience. Urban life became a testing ground where success and failure appeared side by side. Adaptation sped up. Technology amplified ideas rather than replacing them, turning belief into action at greater scale and speed. Tools followed thought. Invention answered philosophy. With greater connection came anxiety, as people realized that ideas could spread mistakes as easily as improvements. Uncertainty grew alongside opportunity. Confidence wavered. Rules multiplied in response, attempting to manage freedom without smothering it, a balance that proved difficult in practice. Order was renegotiated daily. Authority adapted reluctantly. New social movements emerged, fueled by shared ideas of justice and belonging rather than by command. Collective action became imaginable for ordinary people. Participation expanded. At the same time, nostalgia appeared, romanticizing older ways as safer or simpler. Even when reality had been harsher, memory softened the past. Debate deepened. Art and stories reflected these tensions, exploring lives caught between inherited tradition and chosen belief. Creativity responded to thought. Expression multiplied. Scientific thinking continued reshaping assumptions, encouraging evidence over intuition in matters of health, environment, and progress. Certainty shifted from authority to proof. Trust realigned. Global connections intensified as ideas traveled across borders, sometimes clashing with local customs and sometimes blending unexpectedly. Cultures interacted more frequently. Identity evolved. Ordinary people found themselves navigating choices once reserved for elites, such as political opinions, consumer preferences, and ethical stances. Decision-making became personal. Responsibility increased. Not all outcomes were positive because some ideas justified inequality or exclusion under new language. Critical thinking became essential. Awareness mattered. Over time, societies learned that ideas require care, discussion, and reflection, or else they harden into rigid beliefs. Flexibility gained value. Dialogue persisted. Daily routines now carried layers of meaning, shaped by centuries of thought compressed into simple actions like voting, studying, shopping, or planning futures. Ordinary acts held history. Habit became heritage. The pace of change itself became an idea, teaching people to expect transformation rather than permanence. Adaptability turned into a skill. Stability redefined itself. Children growing up inside this world inherited not only tools and laws, but ways of thinking that framed possibility, imagination widened, limits shifted. As we move forward from here, the story continues without a clear ending because ideas never stop reshaping daily life, quietly preparing the ground for changes that future generations will simply call normal.